All right, so let's get started. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk really quickly about how to use the iPad to create our Excel graphs. Keep in mind that on the iPad, there is the actual Excel app. We are not going to use the Excel app. The Excel app is a much smaller version of the traditional Excel that you would find on your computer or on your MacBooks. And the reason why is that on the MacBooks or the computer, we have these really large hard drive space. On the iPad, it doesn't have that much space, so therefore they kind of put a smaller version of Excel on the iPad. Now, our workaround to actually still work with the full version of Excel is we're going to work with the cloud-based version of Excel. And what we're going to do is we're just going to go into Google, and to get to the cloud-based version of Excel, we're going to type in Excel, hit return, and then you're going to get this page right here. And it should be the very first link sitting there that says Microsoft official site. You'll click on it. And when you click on it, you'll get this page right here. And we're just going to sign in to the actual site. Once you get here, then all you need to do is you need to click on create a workbook. And I click on it. And for some reason, I don't know why it's doing this. Earlier today it was working, but right now when I click on nothing's happening. Most likely for your iPad, it's going to open up. For me, my workaround is it says right here, preview Excel for the web has a new home page. So I'm just going to go to the new home page, and it gives me now the blank workbook, and that's what we want. Either way, you can click on that button that was sitting there that I couldn't click on that wouldn't open for me, or you can come here and open up your blank workbook. And here we go. So I got my blank workbook that's sitting here. And like any sort of workbook, we have sheets. And you'll notice right now I have my sheet number 1. If I want to add additional sheets to my workbook, I can click on the plus button, and now I'm on sheet number 2. And I can click and add as many sheets of paper to this Excel as I would like. I'm going to go back here to sheet number 1. And what we're going to work on today is we're going to work on finding the density for metal A. So for this sheet number 1, I am going to actually label it and change it from sheet 1 to call it metal A. And all I'm going to do is double click on it. And now I can change that title. I'm just going to call it metal, in this case A. There we go. So I've got it now changed to metal A. Couple of things just to point out, just for some terms that you'll hear me throwing out. You'll hear me say, oh, I clicked on this cell. Keep in mind that each box that is sitting here is referred to as a cell. And the cell actually has a reference that says right now A2. And the reason why Excel calls it a cell is they said, hey, just like the human body, the simplest part of the human body is a cell. Well, the simplest part of Excel is the cell. So here we go. I'm now in box B5. If you want to edit or add anything to the cell, you can click on the edit and you can start typing things in there. Now, before we go any further, I just want to talk about our graph a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Notability for 1 second, and we'll come right back to Excel. You can stay in Excel. I'm just going here. What I want to point out is I want to just talk really quickly about our graph. And our graph looks like the following. We said that on the y-axis, we were going to have our mass. So here goes mass. Units would be grams. On the x-axis, we had volume, and we said the unit would be milliliters. We also had a title, so we're going to make sure in our Excel graph we have a title as well. We'll call this density metal A. And then what we'll do is we'll show Excel or tell Excel, hey, let's plot some data points. And Excel will go in here and just kind of plot some data points. The next thing we're going to do, which I'll show you how to do, is we're going to get this kind of best fit line. So I'm going to go in here. Hey, I'm going to start best fit line at 0 because at 0 mass, there's 0 volume. Drawing the best fit line, I'm going to say roughly about right there. There we go. Excel is going to eventually actually display the equation that represents this line right here. And it's going to give us an equation in the form of the equation of a line, which is going to say, hey, y equals mx plus b. So it'll provide us that equation. Now, one of the things that's going to happen in Excel is we are going to tell Excel that we want the y-intercept to be equal to 0 in this case, which means that when Excel finally displays the equation of a line, it's going to say y is equal to mx x. And it's going to provide us this information. If you remember, we said m is going to be the slope, which of course is going to be equal to our density. So when we're finished with Excel, this is what we should have kind of written down for us. So a couple of things just to point out. What do I want to point out here? Sorry about that. Oh, when it comes to working in Excel, Excel kind of works the exact same way that our math teachers taught us how to plot our data way back in elementary school. And they told us that, hey, when we set this up, we want to make sure that we have our little t there, we have our x, and also our y. And then we put all our data for x in this column and all our data for y in this column. The reason why I point that out, and I'm going to go back to Excel now. So give me 1 second, going to Excel over here. Here we go. As in Excel, you'll notice that we have these columns A, B, C, D, E, and it goes all the way over to eventually getting to the X. Let's see if I can even get it to go down there. Sometimes I can, sometimes I can't. There we go. You'll notice I got my X and also I have my Y sitting right here. Keep in mind that we could, in theory, put our data under the X column and also our Y column. However, that would leave all these blanks columns sitting down here. So I'm not going to do that. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to work with column A and also column B. Keep in mind that if I choose column A to be my X, then B by default will be my Y. Just like if I decide to make G my X, then H by default is going to be my Y. Now, if you remember, we said that when it came to the X column, that we wanted this to actually be our mass. So what I'm going to do, X is actually going to be our volume. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in right here. I'm going to click on edit, and I'm going to type in volume. So volume, here we go. And for some reason I had the cap locks on. I don't want it all capitalized, so I'm going to turn the cap lock off. Volume, space, parentheses, G, and then close the parentheses. Here we go. Now, what I'm going to do is you're going to notice that the volume is actually starting to go over here into column B, and I don't want that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my cursor and put it in between. Let me get rid of that. So I'm just going to use my fingers to click in here to get rid of that edit. I'm going to put my cursor in between the A and the B. And yeah, it's not doing what it's supposed to do. And this is perfect. I'm glad it's not doing what it's supposed to do. Whenever that happens, it's a glitch that's kind of going on with the actual cloud version. I'm just going to hit refresh really quickly. So here goes refresh. Say submit. Not worried because everything has been saved. Every time I do something in the cloud, it saves it instantaneously. Now when I put my cursor in between A and B, you'll notice that this little oval pops up. So I'm going to zoom in. There goes my oval. And I'm just going to now click on the oval and open. Oops, wait a second. I'm going to open this cell up a little bit there. There we go. And now, once again, volume is under the column A. For B, I'm going to type in mass. Oh, got to type edit, hit edit first. Mass. Oops, there we go. Mass, parentheses, G. There we go. And I got my mass sitting here. All right, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start putting my actual data under volume. So my data is going to be different from your data. So I'm just going to input the data I have, 6.1, and you'll just input the data that you have, 4.8. What else do we got here? 8.9, and then I got 6.9 and 7.1. Got it. Next, I'm going to go over here to my mass. I'm going to start inputting my actual mass here. And for the mass, I've got 17.03. Oh, I always forget. Got to push the edit first. 17.03. I'm going to hit enter, take me to the next cell. 13.80. When I put 13.80, watch this. The 0 is going to disappear. If I want the 0 to be included, because Excel says I don't care about the 0 as I do calculation, I see 13.8 as the same as 13.80. I want the zeros to show my degree of uncertainty within the measurement. you'll notice right here you have 2 zeros and you have 1 0. If you click on the one with 2 zeros, it just starts to add additional zeros here. If I add too many, I can click on the one with the 1 0 and it will take the zeros away. So that's kind of how we add our zeros here. Hit enter or click on the next cell. I'm going to go to edit. And for this one, I have another 0, so 24.20. So I'm going to do the same thing here. Click on this cell, add the 0. Next, going here to this cell, this is going to be edit. And we got 17.82, enter. And then 20.65, enter. All right, so I have my data sitting here. So now I am ready to create, in this case, my graph. And keep in mind, for me, the longest part of this graph or creating this graph is really inputting this data. Once you become proficient with Excel, it will take you less than 2 minutes to have your graph, label your axis, the title, best fit line, equations of the line. But for right now, we're going to go through this process slowly. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight everything that I want Excel to actually graph, which is just going to be strictly the numbers. And notice how with the numbers, and I forgot to mention this, you can't put your units with the number because Excel would not know how to deal with 6.1 milliliters. It knows how to deal with math, like 6.1 divided into 17.03, but units it can't handle. So never include your units in there. Highlighting the data that we want to plot. And then what we want to do is we want to insert a chart onto this actual page. So I'm going to click on the insert. And then we're going to go right over here. We always in science want the basic just dots. So we'll click on the basic dot chart, and here goes my Excel graph. Oops, zoomed in too much there. Let's try this way. Here we go. And you'll notice that, oops, move this over a little bit. I'm just not super great with working with the iPad here. So excuse me as I try to get this back to where we were. And better yet, maybe it's just glitching on me. I can't tell. I'm going to say, you know what? Let's just hit a refresh here, just to be on the safe side. Refresh, submit. And there we go. All right. So now, there we go. Looking at the actual graph, a couple of things to point out. If I click on the cell, so I'm just clicking on one of these cells here, you're going to notice up here on this label, it has draw right here. If I click on the chart, it gives me, in this case, another label. So I need to click on it with my finger. Here we go. It gives me this label now, chart sitting here. If I click on the chart, it gives me a whole bunch of options that are sitting here. Give me 1 second because I need to plug my charger into my iPad, because if you notice on the screen there, it's saying I'm getting a little low on power here. There we go, charging it. So now that we have that label chart, we can start doing a lot of things here. One, we can actually change this title. I don't want it to be called chart title. So we go right here to chart title. Keep in mind, the title is already on the chart. So when I click on this, I don't want to say, hey, add the title. I just want to edit the title in this case. I'm going to call this now just, hey, density metal A, and click on OK. And there we go, got our density metal A. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to label our axis. So axis title, I'll click on this. I'm going to say below, so you go with the horizontal axis title. And we said, of course, this is going to be our volume. And that's parentheses milliliters. And I'm going to click on OK. And then we go axis title again, and this time vertical. And then you get a couple of different options of how you want it to sit. I always just go with the first one. If you want to choose one of the other ones, go right ahead. So this one's going to be labeled mass, parentheses grams, and click on OK. Voila. So we got our graph. Now, let me point one thing out here. When it comes to our actual graph here, you'll notice that there's just a lot of unused space here. So even if I look at this thing, you'll notice that, hey, all this space right here is not being utilized, and all this space down here is not being utilized as well. A lot of times in your classes, especially the college. Your professors don't want to see all your data kind of just clustered in one part of the graph. They want it to kind of be spread all throughout the actual graph. So I'm going to show you how to actually fix this. Now, one thing to point out, you're going to notice on your graph that you have this thing that says series down here. And it's a little dot there. And what it's simply saying is that it sees all these dots as being some sort of series. Now, what we are going to do is we are going to, once again, touch this chart, go to the chart options right here, and we're going to go to format, because we are going to do a couple of things. We're going to format this graph a little bit, and we're also going to eventually put the best fit line on here. Now, let me point one thing out here. When you click in here, by default, it should go to format, but sometimes what will happen is it will default data. If it's data, we don't want data. We want to go over here to format. And a lot of times, all these tabs should be kind of closed up, but when you click on them, it will kind of open the tab up. What I'm going to do is, I don't like right now the actual horizontal axis. I don't like how right now from 0 to 4, there's nothing there. So I'm going to click on horizontal axis, and you're going to notice it says 0 to 10, and it says 0 to 10 right here. It's saying it's starting with 0, which I don't want it to start with 0. I want it to start, what in the world is going on here? Finish setting up your iPad. I don't want to do that. I will do that later. So let's get out of this and get back to my Excel graph here. Here we go. Back here. So where it says minimum, I'm going to go in here and set it to be 4. You're going to notice that as soon as I hit return, the 0 to 4 is going to disappear, and it's going to spread this out some. There we go. I'm going to close this horizontal axis up now. And I'm going to click on the vertical. Because with the vertical, I can see it's going from 0 all the way up to 30. But it looks like my first data point is not picking up until around 15 or so. So I'm going to say, you know what, instead of 0 to 30, I'm going to start it off at maybe 12 and have it go from 12 to 30. And you'll notice how it got rid of all that empty space there as well. So we are almost finished here. Only thing we need now is we need to find the actual best fit line for this series here. So you'll notice right here it says series 1. And if you click on it, it's going to give us a whole bunch of options sitting right here. And you're going to notice right now, I got to zoom the screen out. Oops, wait a second. Told you I'm not the best when it comes to zooming in and not zooming in Excel. Here we go. So if I click on, come over a little bit more, come down, and you know what? I'm just gonna hit refresh. Like I said, I'm not the best with zooming in and zooming out. There it goes. All right, I got my chart back. Click on my chart again. So just click on it here, go to chart, go to format, and then when I click on format, I should get the option. It's going to pull up right here. Come on, format. Give it a second. And sometimes what happens, at least when I'm here at school, is sometimes if the Wi-Fi is not moving as fast, it takes a little while for it to pull up. And I'm going to try this one more time. I'm going to come out of here. I'm going to click on it. So we're just there, ready to add what we need. Click on it. Chart, format, and let's see. What if I went here? It works perfect. Axis works. Let's do a refresh one more time. Hopefully this will fix the problem. Click on chart. Chart we have. And let's see. Format. There it goes, and it's back once again. Hitting that refresh fixes everything. So we're going to go to series one more time. We're going to scroll down here at series, and what we want to do is, for some reason, I don't know what's going on, there's a little button that sits to the right here, which I don't know if I'm zoomed in too much. That's what's up. I'm zoomed in too much. Right there is a button that says trend line. And if I click on trend line, that's the equivalent of a best fit line. So we got our best fit line that's actually sitting there right now. There's only one more thing we need to do, and that's to scroll down and do the following. I want to set the y-intercept equal to 0. And if I check that box, it's going to make now this trend line, or the best fit line, go through the 0. And you'll notice when I click it, it's going to change the slope of that line just a little bit here. So click on it, and you'll notice how the slope changed. Last thing I want to do is I want the equation of the line. So that's where you'll see equation and values. And if I click on it, you'll notice that it will display, in this case, the equation of the line, which is sitting right here. And it's y equals mx. And we said that the y-intercept was equal to 0, and that's why it's just y equals mx here. You can click on this box, and you can move, in this case, that box around. So if I don't want it to sit here, I can click on it. If I can click on it, here we go. Nope. And I guarantee you, once again, it can be moved. I'm not sure why it's giving me this difficulties. Maybe if I do it with my finger, there it goes. If I do it with my finger, I can move it. And there we go. So we have, in this case, what our slope is going to be, which we said is going to be representative of our density. One last thing, and then we're finished here. You got to be careful with the slope that Excel provides you. Excel is like a calculator. It's going to say, I'm calculating it. I don't care about sig figs. This is what I see the actual slope of this line to be. We are concerned with sig figs, so we got to actually take that value and reduce it to the number of sig figs that it should have. Now, the way that we're going to do this is we're going to look at our masses, and we're going to say, hey, you know what? Our masses all have 4 sig figs here. Our volumes all have 2 sig figs. These volumes are being divided into the mass, and I know with the rules of multiplication division is that it has the one that has the fewest number of sig figs dictates how many sig figs we have in our answer. So if this has 4 and I divide it by 2, then it means that when it comes to my slope, I'm going to type this in here, my slope, which is going to be equal to my density, is going to be equal to, when I take that 2.7584 and reduce it down to 2 sig figs and say it's 2.8 grams per milliliters. And here we go. So that would be my density. Now, a couple things to keep in mind. One, when it comes to eventually writing up your lab report, you are going to have to include this data table, and also you'll include the graph into your Excel. You can easily just copy, just click on it, copy it, and just paste it either into your Word doc, or you can paste it directly into your Notability if you decide to type your lab report up in Notability. What I want you to do now is I want you to go to sheet number 2, double click on it, and you're going to type in metal B. And what I want you to do is take your data that you have for metal B, in this case, and recreate, in this case, the graph that looks just like what we did for metal A. One other thing just to point out, just to kind of point this out, it's not something you'll probably use right now, but eventually it might be something that you might use. Let's just say that I wanted to move, in this case, my sheet for metal B to be the first sheet. If you click on it and move it, you can move these sheets around, where now metal B is my first sheet and metal A is my second. Once again, just a feature that you can eventually use. Also, when it comes to this chart, if I click on it and I click on the chart options up here, there's a lot of different things you can play around with in Excel under these options. For instance, if you want this little box here to be maybe, I don't know, a green color, and then make this outer part maybe, I don't know, a gold color for gold and green, you can play around with it. It's not something I'm asking you to do for this class, but if you ever wanted it to be a little bit more colorful, you have that opportunity to do it. All right, with that said, we know everything we need to know with regards to how to create this graph. Also, once again, if these things get on your nerves of having the series 1 and now it says, hey, linear line for series 1, you can always click on them and also delete them as well. It's completely optional. It doesn't bother me if you have it on your graph. And with that said, we are done with, in this case, my presentation on how to use the Excel and the iPad. Hopefully this makes sense. If you have any questions, make sure you reach out to me.